So, you ready to jump into it, Roy?
Of course, always.
You want to talk about a small, tiny national final that no one pays attention to called Melodifestivalen for just a moment?
I think we could skip it.
We could skip it. Nobody cares. Now, let's talk about Sweden. Melodifestivalen 2023. After 4 heats, 1 semifinal, we finally reached it. The grand final of Melodifestivalen, where 12 acts were battling it out. 50% of the votes from the juries, 50% from the televote. And before we go into the details, let's just remind ourselves of the 12 acts in the running. Here's a short recap. There you have it, the 12 acts in the running that were in the running last night. And of course, once they all performed, the lines opened and everyone in Sweden, they were able to vote. And while that was happening, we got the jury votes in. And I don't think it came as a surprise when the results showed that Loreen with Tattoo won the jury vote by a hefty margin. Every jury, except for one, gave Loreen the high score. So at that point, it was very difficult for her to lose it. And ultimately, she also won the televote. Therefore, going to Eurovision Liverpool for Sweden, returning after 13 years, Loreen with Tattoo, clearly a fan favorite. And as of right now, the betting odds favorite. How did you enjoy the show, Roy?
Yeah, it's very Melfest again. Like, it's very slick, very modern, very well produced. Like, everything is worked out to the T. It was funny in bits. I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of the Dennis Oseda intro act, but it was okay, I guess.
It's funny. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did tweet about it. So Danny said, I'm paraphrasing right now, but I tweet about it. In 2012, he came second to Loreen, right?
Yeah.
With Euphoria. And he was like, no one in Europe's going to vote for Loreen. People will not get that kind of music. And now the irony that he is just the Inavalak, the year that Loreen gets to go to Eurovision again, it's like you can't make that up.
That's really funny, actually.
Yeah, he was very, very bitter. And I said 13 years, I meant 11 years. I was in the year 2023, so my brain got stuck on the number 3. So Loreen obviously did a fantastic job. The staging was amazing, and she is just the way she carries the song. It is just amazing, because I always said the song to me is a really good song, a great pop song, but it's really her and the whole thing that she does with it that really elevates it. And you just went like, you're just in awe. Oh, this is just so beautiful to watch. And she gives it her all. And she was so humble and so excited about it, because, you know, she had her, I don't want to call it a flop, but certainly her moments where she tried to come back in 2017, I believe, with Statements, and that didn't even make it to the final. So she knew that there was still a good chance that she once again would underperform. And that did not happen, of course. So I'm very, very happy for her. And I totally see why people are going crazy over this one. Because, you know, it is just delivered so well. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think Loreen is really the selling factor of this song. I think the song as it is isn't necessarily that great, if I were to say so. I mean, it's like, you poo-poo, tattoo poo-poo. It's a bit like... not necessarily the best ever written piece, but Loreen really makes it work on the stage. Like, her vocals are insane, her charisma, her way of moving on the stage, like, it's mysterious, it's cool, and that's what people like to see in a performance, basically. And yeah, this year it works, and unfortunately it didn't work with Statements. I would have preferred this one. No, Statements over that one. This one. Wait.
You preferred right? Statement over Tattoo.
Exactly. And like, I'm not the biggest fan of returning artists either, especially when they're kind of doing the same thing as they did before. Like, yes, there's a lot of time in between, but it kind of feels like Tattoo is kind of doing a little bit of the same that Euphoria was doing as well. So I would have preferred maybe a different genre from her whenever she would return. But hey, a lot of people love it. It makes sense that it won.
And it's just amazing me because it just really shows, as pointed out, when you have a really more than just a buff performer putting a song, because you have valid points. You lyrically may not be the biggest masterpiece ever written. Is it the most unique pop song ever existed? No, but here comes Loreen. She sings it so well with so much compassion, and then the staging and the visuals are just like, wow, this is a completely different song than what you hear in the studio version. And that what makes a great performer. Loreen is just so good at it. And I'm just very, very happy for her. Now, there's one little caveat. I don't know. I mean, it happened before. So we all seen Loreen staging, Roy, right? With the big screen coming down. There's a really good chance that this will not be able to be done at Eurovision, because that is, I think it's a 1.8 tons heavy screen. And keep in mind, that would block a lot of the other lights, all of the cameras in Liverpool that it's needed for the entire show. So SVT would need to come up with a solution, right? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it seems like they probably will have to come up with a different staging a little bit, or at least some different way of putting the ceiling on top, because one, it is very heavy, two, it is extremely big. And I also heard there was like 3 minutes to like put the staging together before the song could go live, and that's kind of the time you don't necessarily have all the time at Eurovision, because you need to go very quickly. Like, you need to move one stage out and then the next needs to go in, because it's quick after each other, and you usually only have like one little bit of a week, or like a
week.
No, I wanted to say recap, but I don't mean recap.
Oh, recap.
Like the little bit in between that you always get in the songs. And there's not enough time to really get that going. So it'll be interesting to see how they solve it. Will they just do like a canopy kind of thing? I don't know. That would like cheapen the overall production of it quite a lot.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting how to tackle it.
But they are very creative. John Lundvik, they tried to have lights up there as well in 2019, right? And it wasn't approved. It was too difficult. So they still managed to come up with that, pushing that little screen thing in, and it worked. The thing is, at Eurovision in particular, anything that hangs or comes down from the ceiling is often not a no-go per se, but certainly a big, how are we going to do that? We all remember Duncan Lawrence's tiny little light bulb that came down, and that was a huge issue just by itself. Just bringing that little light bulb down. So can you imagine having this massive, massive wall coming down? That is insane. But if somebody knows how to do that, we'll go from there.
Yeah, and usually when people do something from the ceiling, it's like it was already there from the stage design. So it's not something that delegations necessarily put there. So it's quite a big thing to put there.
Yeah. The EBU told the Swedish delegation about what the arena could handle in advance. Yes, and the team that put this together, they were aware of the potential drawbacks of that, but they believe they still wanted to do in Melodifestivalen, win it, and then figure out Eurovision, which is fine. That is their right to do, because this wouldn't be the first time that something cannot be done. And I'm not saying it's not possible, because we have other things hanging from the ceiling. We had the big giant moon in 2021 for Spain and the big trumpets for the UK. But it's less about, it has to work, and they're not moving, right? They were stationary. So it's a lot different. So we will see. Now, clearly, if you pay attention, at this point, it is, I think, obviously the fan favorite when you look at polls and betting odds, all that stuff. Let's talk this through, Roy. Do you think that there is a potential that Tattoo could be overhyped within the bubble, or do you think this is the one to beat at this point?
I do think it is a bit overhyped as well, but I also do think that it is one of the front runners this year, because a lot of not only fan press is talking about it. Like in the Netherlands, people were already talking about Loreen participating in Melodifestivalen even before it won, and that was mainstream media. Like if you have that in every country, and everybody says, oh, Loreen is returning. People who watch Eurovision will already be kind of primed to have in their mind, oh, wait, Loreen is returning. I liked Loreen back then. I will vote for her again. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of an effect that has. It's a bit unfortunate nearly that it has such an influence with the press.
With Antonio, to add your question, how much do you think nostalgia plays a role in people's reaction and support for the entry? Because as you said, the media is already reporting on it. And it's because she won the contest before, and there is a little bit of hype. you think
Yeah,
that
I think
was part?
I think when people don't hear anything from the press or anything, and they see her on the stage, it'll be like, oh wait, I recognize her. You know, it's not going to be that big of a difference. But when
Mhm.
like the mainstream media puts so much focus and attention on her, and like it spreads all around Europe already, that will put people in a different mindset because they've like heard the voice or like the name a couple of times before as well. Um, yeah, I wanted to say something else as well, but I forgot what I wanted to say.
And then it was probably a lie. So the what that's kind of what family used to say. But no, it I will say this. I At this point, I will agree that I think Loreen is the one to beat. I do. There are people out there saying, it's a foregone conclusion. Sweden is going to win. I am not there yet. I will say that we still have a few songs to go. Most of them we know now. At this point, I could see Sweden easily winning the jury vote. It seems like the kind of song that they would go crazy over and be at the top. I am not convinced that she is a guaranteed televote winner. That being said, you don't need to be per se. I could easily see her doing more of a Manzamalo, where he won the jury vote by such a hefty margin that a third place in the televote didn't matter because that score alone dragged him up so much. I could easily see Lorraine doing something like that. And that doesn't mean I cannot see her winning the televote. Just right now, I'm not sure it is going to be as significant because keep in mind, even Euphoria, that smash hit that we still talk about 11 years later, barely won the televote. It was like 10 points shy from the Grammys from Russia beating her, so it's nothing is for sure. But I still think that Lorraine is the one to beat, and I would be surprised at this point if this would change, at least in terms of the predictions and the polls and the odds. Let's talk about a few other ones. So this is Roy-Festivalen.
Mhm.
Roy, who should have won and why? If your favorite.
My favorite was by Kiana.
That's a surprise. I didn't expect that. Go ahead.
No, it is quite surprising, I would say, but it's just I really like the vocal tone that she has. Like you can really see it in the verses, but it's just a bit of a generic pop song, perhaps. But she delivered it with so much energy. I really, really, really enjoy watching that. I do wish that she's very young and a massive talent, and I hope she really looks at what she wants to do as an artist and then find her style, find her groove, find her genre, basically, and then comes back in a few years. Because I see some good potential in Kiana. Definitely impressed me last night.
Yeah, I think she needs to find herself as an artist to truly
Yeah.
find her craft. She reminded me a little bit of, I forgot her name, Mia Pritz, like you me, and and then she changed her style. I don't think she has found herself as the artist that she is, and Kiana probably will be is currently falling in the same category. That doesn't mean she's going to end up in the same, because she went downhill in Melodifestivalen. Kiana could go even further up. We shall see. So, but that's kind of often how it goes when you're being put in a situation. Here's a song that for you to sing, 16-year-old girl, so, and then they don't even know who they are. I said it before, if Smash Into Pieces would have been the winner, that Sweden probably would have been my number one. I'm listening to this all day. Turn it up, turn it up, turn it up. But that's my kind of music. So I knew it wasn't going to win, but I am stoked that it came third and third in the televote on top of it. So there is a place for this kind of music that is maybe not the predictable sounds condescending. I shouldn't say that. More mainstream pop sound. Yeah. I like that idea. Let's talk about real quick. Did you think at any point that there was a chance that Marcus and Martinez, who came second, ultimately with Air, could catch Lorraine, or you knew that was just?
It wasn't necessarily that. It was more like the first jury result being announced, and it was like 8 points to Loreen, and then 12 went to Theos. From the Croatian jury, that was like, oh, wait a second. She doesn't necessarily have this fully in the back, but then everything was 12 points, 12 points, 12 points, 12 points.
Can I add something to that real quick?
Sure.
I would hear your thoughts. Do you think that is a potential indicator, because that came from Croatia, a country that is not as like part of the Western alliance that we see in all the other juries that we've seen there. Do you think it's something to it? Maybe Loreen is more really geared towards more like the Western part of the continent, and there is a potential that like in the Balkan world or in other places this may not go as big. Is that, or am I overthinking that?
To a certain extent, definitely, because I think we all have a sort of music style that we listen to a lot, and people who live in the Balkan have a totally different style of music they listen to on the radio than we in the North. Like, yes, you'll have songs that will do well in every country in the world, but it just makes sense why they also vote for countries that send something similar to what they already listen to. So, could she perhaps get a little less points from those countries? Yes. Will it be enough to have her completely flop? I don't know. I don't think so necessarily.
Yeah, I don't think flop, but I think there is a
No,
case to be made that maybe it won't be the number one everywhere. You know,
it might
but
hinder her.
it might. We'll see. Collins is asking, I'm surprised Maria Sir did poorly with the jury. I thought she would be top 3. Were you surprised that Maria Sir with Never Give Up did not convince the juries? Because she only got 10 points from them, which equals 11th place, second to last.
I was more surprised that she was a direct qualifier, to be honest. Like when I listened to the song, it just felt so basic, like so beige. Like sure, she delivered it well. She has good vocals, but I wasn't necessarily enthused by it that much. So I could totally see why juries didn't necessarily go for it because it was just a ballad. She sang it well, but it didn't really stood out from the rest necessarily.
Yeah, so she was overall 6, by the way, in the televote last night. And keep in mind, the Heats, they don't have juries. It's 100% televote. People will claim it's because of the war in Ukraine that people gave her a sympathy vote. We will never know whether that is true or people liked it. So I thought the same thing. It wasn't my favorite song. I thought it was a little heavy, draggy, old fake kind of ballad. But people clearly voted for it. So I still was surprised it didn't do better with the juries. It seems like something that they would give a few points to, but clearly they were not. What was your biggest surprise last night, good or bad?
Can I do both? Because I was quite surprised with how well Royals was doing in a jury vote. Like it was going really well for Paul Ray.
Third place.
And yeah, exactly. That was incredibly high. And I was like, okay, I expected it to do well, but third was a bit high. So I expected it like maybe 6 or something like that. And then the televote came around and it was like, Paul Ray, you've got a great amount of total of 1 point. And that was extremely harsh. So like, I thought both of them would be like a bit closer to the middle for that one. But yeah, that was like the most out there thing of the night, basically, for me.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I would have said the same thing. That was probably the biggest surprise. I knew when I saw, well, Paul Ray's not going to get third with the televoters. I thought he's going to get like 20, 30 points or something like that. Kind of like where Theos fell and all that stuff. But yeah, 1 point, that was a shocker. I thought Theos would do a little better with the televote, actually. He only came in 7th. So decent result, but I thought that one, the running order, and it was just just an energetic song that people often gravitate towards. I thought he would do a little better. He still came 5th overall, but I think at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th with the televoters. So I thought he was going to be in the top 5. So that surprised me a little bit. And I like this comment aimed at me. You must be glad that Cassiopeia won a little bit this year. I know she deserved so much more last year. Yes. So I just was very happy. I still sing that song.
It was my favorite last year.
Me too. In hindsight, it is. It was. Only one I still play. Like it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was doing major, well, I call it spring cleaning downstairs, and I think I had that song on like 3 times in a row. Just like I literally couldn't get enough of it. And so yeah, I'm glad that she gets to do this. Even though I still would have preferred last year's effort, but I understand. This is Loreen's moment. Any questions about Melodifestivalen? Let us know in the chat at ESC United. And I will put them on there. I have to point this out as a Swede. I really don't like the voting system we use with age categories. What are your thoughts on it? It is questionable to me as well. Would love to hear from you as well, Roy. Mostly because, as I said before, who votes at age 3 on an app for the best song. You can barely, you cannot properly even articulate a thought at age 3. So I don't understand how they can have a bucket. And oftentimes the 3 to 9 and then 10 to 17 bucket, they have a pretty strong say. And then they drag songs that are maybe a little bit less kids friendly down. Like Tennessee Tears heavily suffered from it. Nordman probably would suffer from it, that kind of stuff, right? So I understand you cannot not represent them, but it seems very random to have a 3 to 9 year old bucket. Overall, I don't know if it's needed by age, but I understand where they're coming from. I'm torn on this. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think definitely they should combine that age, like 17 or younger would be my ideal world, because then you still have the opinion of the youth of Sweden, but then it's not 3 to 9, which is a bit like, I don't know if that's really what you want to have. On the other hand, though, you also have like the old spectrum, and you also have a televote, and mostly the older people will vote in the televote as well.
Yes.
So it kind of balances out a little bit in that way. I do kind of like it though, the age difference, because you can all vote for the song and you really have a good opinion what Sweden in its total wants. Because for students, it might be a bit too expensive to vote, for example, or older people might not really care as much. And now everyone kind of gets a little bit of a say in what they send to Eurovision. So in a way, I quite like it.
Yeah. Although it also opens up, I would think, ability to I can just pretend to be 5 years old. Right. I'm like, because I'd rather get, my favorite song. And just like, you just have to take my word for it. I'm really 5 years old, like, how would you know? So it is, so I understand the concept of it, but yeah, it is a little different, I guess. But it has made a big difference, because there's certain songs that get a lot of votes, because younger people, even though they may have money, but they're often just the parents pay, right? And they just keep voting. And then like people that are a little older, they vote like, okay, I vote once, and then they're being completely overlooked. And it is different. Although I could not see that being implemented anytime soon at Eurovision. I think the technology isn't there, especially all over the continent. That would be a little crazy, even though they're trying to move Eurovision a little bit into the Melodifestivalen lane, it seems a little bit. So I would love to hear from everyone in the chat as well. Where do you think?
Is it a qualifier? Is always your question, Matt.
Yeah.
Ask the same question for every country, okay?
Okay, let's see. I'm going to post a poll. Where will Loreen end up in the finals?
Non-qualifier.
First, second, third.
I kind of hate this. Like,
other.
We all like street it that
There
it
you
will
go,
do
people.
so well.
Vote in the chat. I'd love to hear from you what you think.
It's starting to feel a bit like it's Loreen and the other bunch, and that's a bit annoying, perhaps.
I know. That's why I didn't even bother with the. But do you think at this point, if you had to vote in that poll, you would put her as the first right now?
I would put it at other.
Other, not even the top 3?
Wait, where did Spain get last year? I'll
Spain
say
get third.
Get, yeah, so third then.
Yeah. So as of right now, we got over 100 votes in already. First, only 39% think it's going to win. 22 think it'll be second. 21%, well, now 20 in third, and 19% agree with you, Roy.
Okay.
At this point, I would be shocked if Loreen would not be in the top 3. I am between second and third right now. No, actually, you know what? I may be first as well, only because I'm looking at the other songs and think, let me ask you this then, Roy. Who do you think could beat Loreen at this point? Who do you think could be on top?
It's a very televote heavy year, I feel. And I can see Finland winning that, the televote.
Yeah, I agree.
And then like getting 5th or something, or 4th in the juries. The question is, how big will the difference be? I think Norway is kind of the happy medium of the two. I think they will get high in both of them. So perhaps one of those countries could be there, but it's just Scandinavia, to be honest, that I'm really thinking about.
Finland is not Scandinavian. Now you messed
Oh, right.
it
Sorry.
up.
Sorry, everyone.
Nordic
Yes.
countries.
Ah,
Oh man.
it
Now,
was a nice night. Goodbye, guys.